Hey everybody, welcome to today's research-informed defensive lesson here at Active Self-Protection. Every single day of the year, we post a real-life use of force incident caught on camera so that your training and your practice can be more research-informed. I'm your daily host, John Correa.
And I'm your co-host today, Neil Widener.
Palm pepper spray is next generation OC spray. It's hot at 1.4% major capsaicinoids, and its modular design means you can customize it exactly to you. 3 different setups, lots of different color combinations. You can make it exactly as you like. And the flip top safety prevents accidental discharges. It's 10 to 12 foot range and 25 half-second blasts. Make sure that you can keep that long range eye poke at long range. I trust Palm OC and I recommend it for everyone for self-defense.
Elderly gentleman is parking his car here, getting out late at night. Now watch the second car come up, and you're gonna see a dude jump right out and point a gun at him. And when he does, our pensioner is ready for him and puts a .357 right in that dude's noggin. He is then going to rip a couple shots off at the car that is headed down the block. Our pensioner was unharmed. Our robber, who was 15, he took the asphalt temperature challenge. Let's see it one more time here. Our dude is just parking the car. I mean, he is minding his own business. Bunch of robbers show up and go, oh, look, we can take that car and go do our thing with it. So they dump a 15-year-old out the window to point a gun at him. But that was the last thing that he thought about. Again, what was the last thing to go through that 15-year-old's mind? 135 grain wad cutter. And he doesn't have to think about that stuff anymore. We got some lessons. Hey, if you want to train and make your skill set better in a live fire environment, Neil Widener is the guy who runs our Active Self-Protection live training program.
Yeah, it's a good time. We travel around a few different places in the country. This year, we're going to 5 locations. If you want to see where that location is, hit the link, go to the Train With Us tab, and get in on the ASP Skills Summit is what we're calling it this time. It's a good time, a lot of fun time. You're going to get to put a lot of ammo down range, and hopefully learn something along the way.
First of all, Neil, I do think this is exactly why. This is literally the reason that I think that good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people should have the right to keep and bear arms, because this elderly gentleman desperately needed that. He was hopeless without a force multiplier like a firearm, and I am so glad that he had one.
Yeah, you know, the whole thing about, you know, if there are no guns, everybody's kind of going to be fine. Well, in this case, it's a 15-year-old versus an 85-year-old or 84, whatever he was. You know, there has to be some sort of force multiplier to even the playing field so people can defend themselves. And, you know, and as we age, you know, things get harder for us. And so having a force multiplier like a firearm to defend ourselves is a wise thing. I don't understand why people want to fight that.
And also now, as Jeff Cooper was famous for saying, that owning a handgun does not make you a self-defender any more than owning a guitar makes you a musician, right? You have to actually have skills with it, and you actually have to have it on your person when you need it. So I love the fact that not only was this elderly gentleman a firearms owner, because I think he needed it in that day, but that he had it on him, Neil, and I think too many people leave the dang gun at home.
I think so too, you know, and I sometimes fall for this, and I'm like, you know, I live in a pretty good sized house with a garage that's a little bit of a walk away to get into the pickup to go into wherever. I'm like, hey, you know what? I didn't have my gun on yet today, and I make the trip back there because we see so many instances and examples like this where if a guy didn't have his gun on at the time, he at the very least loses his car, and at the very worst loses his life over this. So if you're gonna be a CCW, carry your doggone gun. You know, and I know folks that carry from the second they get out of bed in the morning to the second that they go to bed at night, and maybe I'm not that much into it when I'm wearing my sweats around the house, that kind of thing. However, if you go out and you're a CCW, if you have some training, you must take your gun with you. There's so many stories that we hear, John, from folks that, you know, I typically carry my gun, but that day I didn't. And that's when those things kick off.
They really do kick off that way. Now, I want to also say, as we move it forward just a little bit, that not only was our elderly gentleman armed, not only did he have the gun on him, but most importantly here, he was paying attention. He didn't get sucked to the inside of the car. It's so easy when you're about to get out of the vehicle to get your focus inside the vehicle because you're getting your stuff, you're turning the car off, you're making sure everybody else is okay. Instead of recognizing that, hey, as soon as I'm parking this car, it turns into a transitional space. And him not doing that here was literally the difference between that guy getting the jump on him and him being ready.
Yeah, he was ahead from the very get-go, because I'm thinking he used his rear view or his outside the door mirror there to identify that there was a car coming up at maybe a little bit different speed than they're typically used to seeing on that street or whatever. And he's checking around his environment to see what's going on so he can control the environment that he's getting ready to step into. When he noticed something was up, he rapidly accepted what's going on in this world. And, it wasn't oh my gosh, there's a guy there acting funny. Oh no, he has a gun. It was like, no, this guy is acting weird. He has a gun, and I'm going to react to that. And I'm going to get ahead in this fight.
I love the fact that it's almost certain to me that our elderly gentleman had that firearm ready. Now, of course, I think the best way to have it ready is to have it in a holster on your person. And then if you need to, you can just reach to it and have it in the holster in your hand on it, okay? I carry my firearm in an appendix carry position up front, and therefore I can have my hand on it and it can come out in a very rapid hurry, and that's exactly what we see here. Now, our bad guy always gets to set the time and the place of the attack. In this case, he has gun up and pointed at our pensioner very, very quickly. However, I want to note that because he's below the door sill, most of his body is, the bad guy can't see him bring that gun up. And also, he doesn't really want to shoot our elderly gentleman. He doesn't want to shoot the victim because he doesn't want to drive his car around with a bunch of brains in it, Neil.
Yeah, the goal here from our bad guys is to steal a vehicle. If this is a hit or something like that, because sometimes people say, well, that was just a hit, the shots are going to have gone off already. The goal here was to steal a vehicle, go sell it for parts or sell it to, or whatever they're going to use that thing for, use it in another robbery, who knows? But they're not going to want to drive around a car that has a whole bunch of blood and bullet holes through the windows and all that kind of thing. And the other thing that I really want to think about here is that our good guy sitting in there has additional concealment from the windowsill of the door, so he can't see what's going on below his waist. That gives you time to get the gun out and get in the fight. And then if it's your car and you shoot out through the windows, again, glass makes bullets do weird things, but typically the side window shatters, and then the second or third shot's going to do what it needs to do. And at that distance, I don't know that it's going to deflect enough to affect the shot. So if you're the defender in that, shooting through the window, I think, is completely acceptable and reasonable.
Totally agree with that. I think shooting through the window was absolutely the right choice. And also, I think we see here that the first person to put an anatomically significant hit in the other guy wins. And I say this in our seminars, that the first person to put one in the meaty bits of the other guy is almost always the victor. And in this case, those meaty bits were a cranial shot. And a .357 mag to the noggin is going to absolutely change your behavior. Now, was the headshot intentional? Was it the best choice? I think there's a lot to be said there, but you know what, Neil? It sure was effective.
It really was effective. And John, as I thought and watched this and kind of thought through that, I don't know that he had a good shot high center chest to where he wasn't going to potentially shoot his own mirror. So I think that's potentially why he brought the gun up a little bit higher. And from that shooting problem that our good guy had, I think he made the right choice. And it clearly worked and paid off.
I also want to note out the driver's side rear door. If you're paying attention, the driver's side rear door is open on the aggressor's car. There is a second bad guy getting out of that car. And Neil, you're the one who pointed that out in our pre-production meeting on this, that, hey, you've got multiple bad guys here, which I gotta be honest with you, it did win the day, but I'm a little nervous taking a 6-shot revolver to a multiple bad guy fight.
Yeah, that one, when I noticed that second guy out, I'm like, is he shooting at the car or is he shooting at the other bad guy, or potentially both? But that's another thing that, our gear choices matter. The fact that he had a gun on him won the day for him. But if you're going to carry around the gun that only has 5 or 6 rounds in it, or, a small capacity of whatever, pay attention to those shots. You don't have you don't have the ability to throw 13 at the first guy and then still have 5 to 7 left, depending on what kind of gun you're carrying. As I carry a full-size VP9, I've got 18 on me at all times, so I can be a little more generous if I need to be. And I spent some time in a class this last weekend, and people are like, why are you shooting 5 or 6 at each target? I'm like, well, I see things like this on a regular basis. We break these things down. Very rarely is 1 or 2 shots finish it. A serving is 3. And if I've only got one bad guy, I'm probably going to give him 2 servings. With the revolver, that would have been the full thing. And now you're back to fighting hands, on fists or whatever the case may be with that other bad guy if he decides he wants to re-engage.
I do think it's worth saying that, hey, 6 was enough here. I also think we do need to stop and talk about this second shot just a minute, because, he takes the shot at the first guy, kind of looks at the second guy, comes back and puts another one in that guy who's really close to him. Now, I know some people are going to say, wait a minute, that guy was already going down. But I think this happened all at once. This happened in a very rapid manner. This guy was just pointing a gun at him. And we're talking about in the compression of less than a second. I don't have any problems with it. I mean, at worst, he's being charged with the desecration of a corpse here for shooting somebody who has already taken a shot to the head with a .357. But given the compressed time and human decision-making and human performance, I think this is entirely justified as well.
Yeah, I have no problem at all with that second shot. Some folks will call that an anchor shot or whatever that case may be. But the reality is that this person just had a gun in your face. You got one shot off. It went through the glass. So calling that shot and understanding that you may have ended the fight with that first one, knowing that you hit him in the head or wherever you hit him, you may not know that. Shot calling is a thing that we do in firearm classes, and it's a lot harder than people think. It really is. So if you think that you can do that, go to the range and try it sometime. Meet me at the range. I'll do it with you. It's not as easy as we think. And so I think in this case, potentially that glass broke with the muzzle blast and everything that was going on there. Likely he didn't know or wasn't at least 100% positive that fight was over. He just knew the guy went down. So as far as he knew, the guy was ducking under to re-engage as soon as he got out. And so that second shot, I'm completely okay with.
Yeah, I mean, eventually you've got to stop, right? At some point, if you go back to the guy and fill him full of lead, some DA is going to have a hard time with it. Not for this one here. Now, our elderly gentleman gets out of the car. I'm going to say he's probably going for the second guy who's bailed out of the car. Note here, though, that a single hand on the gun in this particular case, especially a shorter barreled .357 Magnum, that's going to be very difficult to control. It's going to be very difficult to get hits with. So this is why we always say you want to really train yourself, Neil, to get 2 hands on the gun if you can.
Yeah, you really do. Shooting a gun one-handed is difficult, and we should call them a hands gun so that more people try to get 2 hands on there. It's not that it can't be done, but also let's think about our guy here. We're talking about an 80-plus-year-old man, probably doesn't have the grip strength that he did 25, 30 years ago. Probably doesn't have all of the shoulder strength and arm strength that he probably needs. So getting 2 hands on the gun, if you can, is by far superior. Not that you can't shoot one-handed, but it just makes the game so much harder.
It really does. Now, we're not giving this guy a hard time. He won a flawless victory, and I'm super impressed with him. Every single gunfight, if you or I got in a gunfight, I don't think we'd get A+, right? We don't think we would be flawless at things because you're under extreme duress. So we are learning lessons here so that we make the best decisions that we possibly can in the moment. Again, I think that if his life's at risk, especially you're sending rounds down range with a .357, you've only got probably 6 in that gun. You have very limited capacity, and therefore you're not going to get a reload in the fight. We just don't ever see that. So you have to be very judicious. Now, eventually here, he's going to put 2 hands on the gun and then do, I think, a little better job here. Good for him on that of recognizing, hey, I need both hands on this gun. I also want to say from the perspective of the video capture, this last one here that he shoots, you see the big fireball come out. We saw one other one, and then we saw some rounds that we didn't see that kind of explosion come from the barrel. And this is just about frame rates. This is just how video technology works, that the lower frame rate of this recording camera, especially at night, does that. So when people ask us, well, how many rounds did someone fire, Neil? We don't always get that information because of frame rate issues like this.
Yeah, it's really hard to see what's going on there because the camera can't catch it, so we don't know. So, we joked a little bit in our meeting about, putting 2 hands on the gun turns it into a flamethrower. And while that's funny, that's not at all what it is. He just, just the camera picked that one up. And again, I want to go back to, I know we have the special pants brigade for our law enforcement guys that show great courage in these kind of things. this dude from the civilian side, if I had his address, I would be sending him a patch.
Absolutely. I think he earned a patch all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. I just don't know the shipping rates where this ends up having to get, because this is, again, a long way away, I believe, out of Argentina. So I'm not positive if he is going to be able to get a patch from us all the way down there, but we'll certainly send it to him if he does. Finally, the little thing here, make sure that your follow-up actions, that you've got your follow-up acronym ready. Remember, TAP IFs is our fight and after the fight acronym. So TAP is a threat. T, threat down. Did I hit him? Do I need to shoot him again? A, accomplices. Did he bring anybody to the fight? Then P, partner, is my partner in the fight. This guy doesn't have a partner. That one doesn't happen. I, injuries. Am I hurt? Do I need to do something about that? I don't think he is here. F, firearm. What condition is my gun in? If you had a reload, this would certainly be the time to get some more beans in the wheel for our pensioner. Then second F, follow-up. What do I need to do right now to make myself safer? What can make me safer right now? And then S, seek help, call it in, get the cops on the way because you want the cavalry and you want to win the fight to 911. This elderly gentleman, he absolutely is a member of the Special Pants Brigade. He did what he needed to do and covered his ass.